So in this video, we are going to learn the first chapter of Indian polity by M. Lakshmikant, that is historical background, the company rule and the crown rule. So here you will learn about the various acts that were passed during the British rule, right from Regulating Act of 1773 to Indian Independence Act of 1947. See, British ruled India for almost 200 years. So many of the features of today's polity and administration find their origin in the British rule of India. In this first chapter of Indian polity, we will look into the historical background, the company rule from 1773 to 1857, and then the crown rule which started from 1858 to 1947. So it all started in Plassey. Then after the Battle of Buxar in 1765, the East India Company obtained the Diwani rights of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha that we know. Now, what does Diwani right means? Diwani right means two things: right of revenue collection and second, right of civil justice. So with this, English company became a territorial power, a political power. It passed various acts from 1773 to 1853, but the company turned overambitious and greedy, and soon people started raising their voice. The outcome of all this was the revolt of 1857. After the revolt, Crown took over the responsibility of India. This continued till 1947. Then India became an independent country. India made a new law for herself, and in this series we will learn about that law, that is the Indian Constitution, and also about Indian polity. So let us begin with the first chapter, that is historical background. English ruled India in two phases. First phase, that is 1773 to 1857, is known as the company rule. And the second phase, that is 1858 to 1947, is the crown rule. So in this chapter, we are going to learn about these two phases and the laws passed in these phases. The company rule of 1773 to 1858, here we will learn the Regulating Act of 1773, Pitt's India Act of 1784, Charter Act of 1793, Charter Act of 1813, Charter Act of 1833, and finally Charter Act of 1853. See guys, these acts were not passed in India. There were no legislative body which can pass such acts. These acts were passed in British Parliament situated in London, and the aim of these acts was to regulate the affairs of the East India Company. They were thinking that East India Company was getting all it wanted. It was becoming overambitious. It was becoming autocratic. So to regulate East India Company, British Parliament passed these acts. So the first act in this series was the Regulating Act of 1773. So it was the first step of the British government to control and regulate the company affairs. Number 2. It was, for the first time, the British government gave recognition to the political and administrative functions of East India Company. Before that, British Parliament never recognized the political affairs of the East India Company. Also, this act laid the foundation of central administration in India. Now let us see how. Governor of Bengal became the Governor General of Bengal, and Warren Hastings was the first Governor General of Bengal. So, the Governor of Bombay and Madras made subordinate to Governor General of Bengal. Also, the GGB, that is Governor General of Bengal, is to be assisted by an Executive Council of 4 members. Now, what is Executive? Executive is the law implementing body. Okay? जो law बनाता है, that is legislature, and law implement करता है, that is executive. Also, according to this act, there was to be Supreme Court at Calcutta. It would consist of 1 Chief Justice and 3 other judges. Sir Elijah Impey became the first Chief Justice. Also, this act prohibited the servants of the company to engage in private trade. So, no private trade. Also, the company shall report revenue and civil and military affairs to the British government. Whatever revenue, civil and military affairs are there and happening there, the report of that shall be provided to British government. So this is the Regulating Act of 1773. After the Regulating Act of 1773, we have Pitt's India Act of 1784. Now let us understand the features of Pitt's India Act 1784. It provided for double government. It distinguished between the commercial and political functions of the company, and while doing so, it established a system of double government. So basically, उन्होंने क्या किया? they differentiated between the commercial affairs and political affairs of the company. So one body was made, Court of Directors, to manage the commercial affairs of the East India Company. And the another body which was made was Board of Control, and it was to manage the political affairs of the East India Company. The board will control and will supervise all operations regarding civil affairs, military and revenue collection. According to this act, the first time the company's territories in India were called as the British possessions in India. Now the next act is the Charter Act of 1793. So first, overriding power. All future governors generals and governors of presidencies were given overriding power over their council, which was set up in 1773. Also this act gave more power to Bengal. The Governor General of Bengal was given more powers and control over the governments of the subordinate presidencies of Bombay and Madras. Also the trade monopoly, which was given to the company by the British monarch to do their trade in Indian subcontinent, was extended for another 20 years. No other English company was to interfere with the English East India Company in their trade in Indian subcontinent, according to this trade monopoly. Also the members of the Board of Control, which was set up in 1784, their staff was henceforth to be paid out from the Indian revenues. This was decided in the Charter Act of 1793. Now let us move to the Charter Act of 1813. Charter Act of 1813 abolished the trade monopoly. This act is important as it abolished the trade monopoly of the English East India Company. From now onwards, Indian trade was open to all British merchants. Before that, this was not the case. However, the trade monopoly of the East India Company over trade in tea and trade with China was continued. Also, this act asserted the sovereignty of the British Crown over the company's territories in India. It allowed the Christian missionaries to come to India, also allowed the spread of Western education among the Indians. This act also authorized the local governments in India to impose taxes on persons. Now let us discuss Charter Act of 1833. This act was the final step towards centralization in British India. Centralization, which started in 1773, was achieved by this act. Governor General of Bengal became the Governor General of India. Lord William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India. Also, the legislative powers of Bengal increased further. It deprived the Governor of Bombay and Madras of their legislative powers. The Governor General of India was given exclusive legislative powers for the entire British India. The laws made under the previous provisions were called regulations, whereas the laws to be made from these provisions from the Governor General of India were called as acts. Also, this act made an unsuccessful attempt to introduce a system for open competition for selecting civil servants, but this was an unsuccessful attempt, as we said. What was the significance of the Charter Act of 1833? For the first time, Government of India was created that had authority over the entire territorial area possessed by the British in India. Also, this act increased the legislative powers of the Governor Generals which sat in Bengal. Now let us discuss the final act in the company rule, that is Charter Act of 1853. It was the last of Charter Act. Also, this act separated legislative and executive functions of the Governor General's Executive Council. Executive Council was the law implementing council. The Legislative Council, which was the law making body, 6 members of Governor General's Legislative Council was introduced. It functioned as mini parliament. In this Legislative Council, there were to be 6 members, 2 plus 4 from Provincial Councils of India. Provincial Councils means the Provincial Council of Madras, Provincial Council of Bombay, Provincial Council of Bengal, Provincial Council of Agra. States are similar to provinces. Today, what we call as a state, that day people used to call them as provinces. After the revolt of 1857, the East India Company is abolished. The Crown took over the governance of India. A new post of Viceroy was introduced, and he was the direct representative of the British Crown. Henceforth, India is known as the British Raj, the Crown rule. So the crown rule lasted from 1858 to 1947. So let us look into the acts passed to govern India in this phase. These acts were Government of India Act of 1858, Indian Councils Act of 1861, Indian Councils Act of 1892, Indian Councils Act of 1909. Government of India Act 1919, Government of India Act 1935 and Indian Independence Act of 1947. Let us bifurcate this. The Government of India Act of 1858, 1919 and 1935, you can see them as mini constitution or constitution of British Raj. The Councils Act of 1861, 1892 and 1909 were the reforms brought in legislative wing of British Raj, that is Indian Councils. And finally there is Indian Independence Act, which was about the British handing over power to India. Now let us begin with the Government of India Act 1858. It was also known as the Act of the Good Government of India. Now ये क्या signify कर रहा है? It is signifying that the previous governance was not a good governance, it was a bad governance. It recognizes that earlier governance by the English company was bad. This act abolished the designation of Governor General of India and changed it to Viceroy of India. The double government abolished. The Board of Control and Court of Director, which was created by Pitt's India Act of 1784, was abolished. It also introduced the post of Secretary of State. Member of the British Cabinet he was vested with complete authority and control over Indian administration. Also, Indian Council was established. It was 15-member council. The Council of the Secretary of State. It was also known as the Indian Council, based in Whitehall, London. It was based in London, not in India, and it was to act as advisory body. The Secretary of State was the chairman of this council. देखो, ये act was just old wine in a new bottle. It did not alter the way India used to be governed, at least substantially. जो exploitation चल रहा था, it was to continue. The next act that we are going to see is Indian Councils Act of 1861. After the revolt of 1857, the British were afraid of a such revolt might happen again. So they wanted more Indians in the legislative process. So to implement this, acts of 1861, 1892 and 1909 were introduced. So the first thing that this act was introduced was to accommodate Indian with lawmaking. The Viceroy should nominate some Indians as non-official members of his expanded council. In 1862, Lord Canning announced Raja of Banaras, also Sir Dinkar Rao and Maharaja of Patiala as members in his legislative councils. Also, this act started decentralization. Legislative powers of Madras and Bombay were restored. See, the Charter Acts, which were to regulate company, were all about the centralization process. But since British Raj has took over, now they want a decentralization. So they started this decentralization by restoring the legislative powers of Bombay and Madras. With this Councils Act, the new legislative councils for Bengal 1862, Northwest Frontier Province in 1886 and Punjab in 1897 were established. Also, this act introduced a portfolio system. Member of the Viceroy's Council was made in charge of one or more departments of the government. It is similar to current portfolio system, जहाँ पे एक खाता राज मंत्री को, एक खाता गृह मंत्री को, एक खाता रक्षा मंत्री को दिया जाता है, similar to that. Also, ordinances. The Viceroy can issue ordinances without the concurrence of Legislative Council during an emergency. The life of such ordinance was to be 6 months. Now let us move to the Indian Councils Act of 1892. Legislative Council members were increased. Additional members in the Central and Provincial Legislative Council was introduced. Still a majority in favor of the British. Also, it gave the power to discuss the budget and question the executive. But power to ask supplementary questions was not given. Viceroy and Governor can now nominate non-official members in the Central as well as Provincial Legislative Council respectively. Now this was it from Indian Councils Act of 1892. Let us move to the Indian Councils Act of 1909. It is also known as the Morley-Minto reforms. Morley was the Secretary of State, Minto was the Viceroy. It increased the size of Legislative Council from 16 to 60 in the Central Legislative Council. Even the number of members in the Provincial Legislative Councils were increased. It also gave the power to ask supplementary questions and move the resolutions on the budget. It provided for the association of Indians with executive councils. Earlier, Indians were associated with legislative councils, but now Indians were to be associated with the executive councils of the viceroys and governors. Satyendra Prasad Sinha became the first Indian to join the Viceroy's Executive Council. He was appointed as the law member. Also, the communal representation. For the first time, communal representation was introduced in India. Muslim members to be elected by the Muslim voters only. This legalized the communalism, and Lord Minto was known as the father of communal representation in India. Now let us move to the Government of India Act 1919. It is also known as the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Montagu was Secretary of State and Chelmsford was Viceroy. It introduced the list system. Central and provincial subject like today's union and state list find genesis here. The central legislature can make laws on central subjects only. The provincial legislature can make laws on provincial subjects. It further divided the provincial subjects as transferred and reserved. See, we learned that executive wing is to implement the laws and legislative wing is to make the laws. So after the law is made, it is to be implemented. Now in these reserved subjects, the governor and his executive council were not answerable to the legislative council in their implementation of law. But in transferred subject it was. This was known as system of diarchy at provinces, but it was unsuccessful. Bicameralism and direct elections. Indian Legislative Council was replaced by a bicameral legislature. Bicameral legislature means there are two houses, upper house and lower house. Upper house was called as Council of States and lower house is called as Legislative Assembly. Viceroy Executive Council, there was reform there. 3 out of 6 should be Indians. Also, separate electorate was extended for 6 Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians and Europeans. Also, this act provided for franchisee. Franchisee means right to vote and right to vote to limited people. Currently, right to vote is applicable to only people beyond age 18. But at that time, the right to vote was given on the basis of property, tax and education. Also, it established for High Commissioner for India in London. Also, it established for Public Service Commission. Hence, the Central Public Service Commission was set up in 1926 for recruiting civil servants. Also, the budgets were separated. Provincial budget was separated from the state budget. Also, the Statutory Commission was established to inquire into and report on the working of reforms after 10 years. And as a result of this statutory commission, we had Simon Commission, which was to come in 1929, but it came 2 years before the schedule. Now let us understand Simon Commission. It was 7-member statutory commission and it came to report on the condition of India under the new constitution of Government of India Act 1919. It recommended for abolition of diarchy, federation in British India and the princely states. Also, it recommended to continue the communal electorate. To consider the proposal of the Simon Commission, 3 roundtable conferences were proposed. From discussion of these roundtable conference, white paper was prepared. The white paper was submitted to the Select Committee of the British Parliament. The recommendation of these committee were incorporated in the Government of India Act 1935. Now let us understand the Government of India Act 1935. It was the lengthy document with 321 sections and 10 schedules. It provided for the All India Federation of Provinces and Princely States, but it did not came into being because princely states did not join the federation. It provided for federal, provincial and concurrent list, similar to today's union, state and concurrent list. Also, the residuary power were given to Viceroy. It abolished the diarchy in provinces, which was there from 1919. It also introduced for bicameralism in 6 provinces. Bicameralism means there would be upper house and lower house. It also abolished the Council of India, which was formed in 1858, about which we learned in the 1858 Government of India Act, which was situated in London and was to be acting as an advisory body to Secretary of State. This Council of India was abolished. It also provided for the establishment of Reserve Bank of India. So Reserve Bank of India finds genesis here. It also established Federal Service Public Commission, which later became Union Public Service Commission. It established for the Federal Court in 1937, which later known as Supreme Court of India. Now let us discuss the final act, that is Indian Independence Act of 1947. This act basically tells how the power was to be shifted from British government to Indian government. So it declared India as an independent and sovereign state. It provided for the partition of India into 2 new dominions. One, a dominion of India and dominion of Pakistan. It abolished the office of Secretary of State. It also abolished the office of Viceroy. It provided for each dominion a Governor General who was to be appointed by the British King on the advice of the Dominion Cabinet. It empowered the constituent assemblies of the 2 dominions to frame and adopt new constitution for their respective nations and to repeal any act of the British Parliament, including the Independence Act itself. The Constituent Assembly were empowered to legislate for their respective dominions till the new constitutions were drafted and enforced. It also gave the freedom to the princely states. It granted the princely states the freedom to join either of the dominions or to remain independent. It also provided for no veto. British monarch could no longer ask for bills or veto them. However, this was reserved for Governor General. Governor General for the dominions. As I said, this act created a new post of Governor General, which was to act on the aid and advice of the council. Also, governance of each dominion was to be conducted based on the provisions of the Government of India Act 1935. So this is it from this chapter of historical background of Indian Constitution. Here we learned about the Charter Acts, the Company Rule, and then we learned about the Crown Rule, that is British Raj. You can get the link to these notes in the description box or comment section down below. So thanks for watching, and if you have any doubts, please let us know in the comment section below. Have a good day.